November is National Adoption Month. We're going to learn more about that in the process. Joining us today, the Executive Director of Allen County Children's Services, we have Sarah Newland, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Holly.
Okay, so what do you think the thing is that most people don't know about adoption?
Adoption is something that all children, we strive for all children in foster care, if they cannot return to their parents, if they can't stay in the home, if we don't have that appropriate relative or kinship provider to care for them, we really want every child to have that forever family. So there's a stigma for children in foster care, especially those older children that may have special needs, that they are, quote, unadoptable. We're really trying to change that stigma and ensure that every child has that option of having a forever family and being adopted.
So as you just explained, there is a process. I mean, you just don't have a child and right away you adopt them out. You talked about foster care and trying kinship and things, right?
Correct. So there are different ways that a child could, in the child welfare system, could ultimately be adopted. Most children are in foster care, and those foster caregivers that have cared for them for long periods of time do ultimately, if they are unable to go home, there are no relatives, they ultimately do stay with that foster caregiver. But there are children who their foster caregivers are not in a position to adopt them, and that's why there is those need for adoptive parents as well to come forward.
Is there training or screenings that you need to go through if you're like, hey, I would like to adopt a child someday?
There is a pretty extensive process to go through. That process is there for a reason, to ensure that that family is appropriate and safe for that child to go to. So the first thing to do is contact our agency if you ever have interest, and we can go through that process with you. There are a home study that has to take place. There are record checks, fingerprints, background checks, all of those necessary things. There's also trainings involved as well. So depending on what route, whether you're fostering to adopt or just adopt, there is a process that we can walk you through.
I know many times people are like, I would like to adopt a baby, and that is awesome. But think about the whole range, right? Because you've got teens and older kids too that need a home.
Sure. So yes, there are a number of people who have just interest in those infants or toddlers, but we have a need for all children. The number one child that needs adopted in the state of Ohio are those teenagers. Okay. Children that we don't want to give up on, children that deserve that forever family just like that infant or toddler.
Right, yeah, because imagine being 17, 18, even turning 19, and you don't have a family to go to. That would be devastating.
Right, that child, even if they are turning 18, we all know that 18-year-olds need family in their early 20s, just forever. They need to have a family to go home to for the holidays. They need that support when they need something, or just those people advocating for them as adults. So when we get asked, why are you still looking for an adoptive family for a 17-year-old? Because there is benefit to that child to have that adoption finalized at 18 and even potentially after 18 as well.
So how many adoptions would you say are typically in Allen County in a year?
That number can fluctuate anywhere from a very small handful to up to, we've had over 20 in the past in a year. We have finalized 3 adoptions this year. We're looking at some pending that just need those finalization dates. So it just varies on what those children are and what the needs are.
Well, as you explained, it is a process, so people should realize that it doesn't happen, you know, snap of a finger and real quick overnight.
No, it doesn't. That child does have to bond with that family. We're not just going to finalize that adoption by, a child going there immediately and finalizing that adoption. So there is a whole process on ensuring that that is the right fit, that foster family or that adoptive family has the right supports in place to ensure that that child is successful in that home.
Many people have heard, the Wendy's guy, Dave Thomas, that, he was adopted and has the foundation. I mean, you guys do have a Wendy's wonderful kid, in Allen County Children's Services, right? Tell us more.
We have had a full-time recruiter at our agency since 2012. That recruiter works with those children that in the past may have been labeled unadoptable. So typically those children who are teenagers, children that may have large sibling groups, where we're trying to make sure that that child can stay with their siblings, and children with medical diagnoses or special needs that can be more difficult and challenging. That recruiter services Allen County as well as some other counties in Ohio, and their focus is really on talking to that child, getting to know that child, going through their whole history, and trying to identify those caregivers who may have cared for them in the past, those supports, that those people we can reach out to. They may not know that child is eligible for adoption, so it's a lot of spending time with that child, getting to know that child, and really focusing in on that child.
It sounds like that was a good thing to incorporate. to have that recruiter?
It has been a huge success. Our recruiter currently has been working for our agency for over 2 years. She has been part of over 20 children being adopted. There has been a specific situation where we reached out to a former coach who didn't even know that child was in foster care. That coach ultimately adopted that child. So really neat stories.
Awesome. Yeah.
And that program has been a huge benefit through the Dave Thomas Foundation and our full-time recruiter.
Wow, exciting stuff. November is National Adoption Month. Think about it. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Holly.
All right, don't go away. We'll look at the weather forecast next.